The Jeffrey Epstein story and all of the files that were not released, don't exist, do exist, and pertaining to the client list is an important story. If there is allegedly a report or videos or pictures of folks that have tremendous power, have received taxpayer dollars, control us, pinions and minions, and they are not being held to account, I think that's something that should be definitely exposed, especially for people, women that were done against their will, especially if they were below the age of 18. They definitely need to be ousted. But I don't want that to distract us with everything that's going on right now that could be a threat to to the United States and to you, and things that I think you should be preparing for. There is a number of things I'm trying to always be prepared for: geopolitical tensions, major power conflicts, regional conflicts, cyber warfare. We'll talk about that here in a second. Economic threats, climate change. Today, I want to talk to you guys about geopolitical tensions, economic changes, ICE shootings, and federal firings. First off, the thing that caught my attention, which I don't really see a lot of people talking about, once again, we are fast tracking another possible strike group coming from the West Coast this time for an urgent Pacific deployment. The USS Abraham Lincoln was already scheduled to go out for exercises near Japan. The Navy has now awarded a contract to Fastline to streamline and actually get more JP-8 fuel into the vessel faster than expected. Due to compelling urgency of the matter, the U.S. Navy exercised its authority to limit the number of bids and proposals to just one, the only California-based company capable of fulfilling the request, and they're based in San Pedro, California. That's a big deal. It's a big deal for a contracting officer to select one of the 7 reasons which allows him or her to make a contract award in the government without competing with anyone else. Competing contracts in the government is a big effing deal. There's 7 primary reasons you can do it. One of them is national security, which is kind of hard to define sometimes. That's usually easier to define if you're already overseas. Public interest, international agreement, stuff like that. The one they selected is unusual and compelling urgency. We don't have the actual justification and approval, which is a document that the contractor has to write. We don't have the contract, which the government has and the awardee has out there in California. We just know that nearly 2 million gallons of JP-8 is going to be pumped into this ship. The ship already received 1.2 million gallons of JP-8 at the end of June. Now they're going to get an additional 1.7 million gallons of JP-8. They're trying to get this vessel out of port faster than expected. Why is that? We have a lot of regional things going on, and not only in the Middle East, which normally those vessels come from the East Coast, from Norfolk, etc., and they go over through the Mediterranean, or they go south and around Africa. Now we have a vessel coming from the Pacific heading west. What is going on? Do we want more support in that region? I think that the answer is yes. Especially when we look at stuff like this. Trump to supply missiles to Ukraine gives 50-day ultimatum to Russia. And we got to remember that for the longest time, President Trump was very hesitant to not only supply weapons to Ukraine, but additional weapons to Ukraine. There was stuff that was agreed upon on a bipartisan basis in the previous administration under President Biden, and the brakes were pumped on that stuff. I mean, we had stuff that was in Poland waiting to be sent into Ukraine via a train ride, which takes about 12 hours, and the stuff was stopped. Thousands of casualties a day on both sides, and it was stopped. And apparently the phone calls that have been happening between the U.S. President Trump and the President Putin have just completely fallen apart. He's given a 50-day ultimatum before I guess he throws on more tariffs, which I'm kind of wondering what else what is there to tariff from Russia? The trade coming from Russia is like negligible. Like there's barely anything that we receive from them right now. We're not getting, are we still getting natural gas? Like, what are we getting from Russia that we can slap a tariff on? So I'm not really sure the teeth that has to do with that. But not only did we turn back on the spigot for the stuff that was agreed upon with the previous administration, we actually upped the ante. We're going to sell them more weapons. They're going to pay for it, I guess, through mineral rights or something like that. But this is what the president had to say about his decision to give them more stuff.
As you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine, and would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war. I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. That can be more simple. It's just the way it is. I hope we don't have to do it.
So 100% tariffs for supplemental tariffs for things that we get from Russia when they hit any of our ports, over 300 ports to receive goods in America. If we find out the bill of lading is country of origin Russia, 100% tariff. I mean, I don't know what we're still getting from them. I know that my knife sharpener came from Russia. I guess it would be 100% tariff on stuff like that. But I don't know. That's something to think about. But these countries, everything going on in the Middle East, doesn't mean they're just sitting down and taking it. You know, we already had that conflict with Iran, and they did their attack on our base in Qatar. But then we also know that they are engaging in cyber warfare. That has been reported several times by the government itself. Not only has it been reported by our government, but it's been to the point where the government is giving out advice and they're giving out information via directly from the .govs and through nonprofits on different businesses on how to protect themselves, because state-sponsored cyber attacks are a real thing. Prepare to defend against nation-state adversaries. They're expecting cyber attacks to increase by 30% this year alone. They've already gone up 40% since 2023. And that's the thing, is like, if we supply more weapons to Ukraine, then already 100% Russia does not want that to happen. They've already said that no troops from any countries in Europe are allowed to be in Ukraine. I don't know what they do about that if that were to happen. So these businesses are already starting to protect themselves. The JP Morgans of the world, the Lockheed Martins of the world, especially defense contractors that are making the weaponry. If you are the Blue Origins, if you are Raytheon, if you are making this stuff, you're supplying it, and then you're shipping it to Ukraine, you are susceptible for a cyber attack. But that also has to do with individual citizens like us. We have to think about ourselves when it comes to protection against a data breach, identity theft protection. And that's why I'm always really big on today's video sponsor, which is Aura, and protecting yourself against a data breach or anything like that. You can use Aura. They do several things. I've mentioned this before. In 2014, I was a victim of a humongous breach within the federal government. Over 1 million citizens' information was stolen. They got my social security number. They got my birthday. They got all my information. They being the Chinese, state sponsored. The government gave me 10 years of protection. That expired in 2024. Ever since then, I have been using Aura to protect myself from all sorts of stuff. Am I popping up on the dark web? Am I data breaches? And also getting my list off of data broker websites. You can allow Aura to search your name to see if you're on some type of data list where they're just always bombarding your phone and stuff like that. They will reach out to those companies and request that you be removed from those lists, and then they will follow up again. It's crazy how much you could exist in different circles without even knowing it. They have a tremendous protection. I think that you should be preparing yourself for a cyber attack, because it's not just big businesses who are already doing this type of stuff, but you should be doing it for your individual self as well. I do it for every single one of my kids, my wife, and myself included. Start your 14-day free trial by clicking the link down below or scanning the QR code on the screen. I think Aura is fantastic, and I think you would like them as well. And we got to think about not only these regional conflicts, these geopolitical conflicts. How do you prepare for that type of stuff? Well, it's very unlikely that you're going to find yourself going out and getting yourself like an AR style weapon and being able to defend yourself against all the folks in the Middle East. That's highly unlikely. You can go get that stuff, but that's not realistic. I think what's more realistic is how you could be attacked from afar, which is the cyber component. But that brings me to environmental changes and everything that's going on within the United States, which is tangible. We're seeing it. There's not just floods. We'll get to those here in a second, but there's also a significant drought going on in the western part of the United States, from mid-Texas going all the way over to California. Severe levels of drought since 2020, to the point where it could jeopardize our crops. You know that we get 90% of our food from the United States. We're talking about tariffs and all this other stuff, but most of our food is homegrown. Of course, we're getting bananas and we're getting grain, and we do get some stuff from overseas. overseas, but most of the stuff we get from here. So as we continue to worry about drought situations in places like Montana, Nebraska, California, New Mexico, we have to think about, what does that mean for you? Are you going to be storing more non-perishables? I think that's not a bad idea to always have 2 weeks of food stored up, but we are in a severe drought where we're trying to think about different ways to get water to where we need it. Not only that, but our grid system has a big issue. I live in Texas, and God bless Texas. I love it a lot, but Texas is a state, one of very few, that has decided to not share grid power with the states around it. What does that mean? That means when Texas has an issue with our grid, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, those states, Oklahoma, do not come to our defense and share their grid. We have our own grid. It's called ERCOT. They've already given a warning about a energy crisis this summer, which we're currently in the summer. We are seeing tons of blackouts in Spain and Portugal. They're worried about that starting here in the United States to save the grid. Saving the grid by purposely doing blackouts or having to do blackouts because ERCOT can't handle it. Think about your state. Does your state share its grid with other states? How do you go about that when there's a rolling blackout? If you're in Massachusetts, I'm very confident that those states up there probably take care of one another, and there's less likelihood you need to worry about it. But places down here, you should always have a plan for that. I'm always thinking about that type of stuff, whether I have my power stations on deck, which I have a lot of power stations. Some have been given to me, some I have purchased myself. Or if I'm thinking about things that can just make life comfortable, such as flashlights, solar panels, etc. I think all that stuff might make a lot of sense for you. I highly advise you to think about your power plan. Think about a way that you're going to keep power moving if you have short spans of blackouts. Eventually thinking about scaling up to long-term plans. Right now, I have a plan to where I'm trying to get my blackout plans that can keep me sustainable for a week where my entire family has power. I want to scale that up eventually, but that's where I'm starting. For you, I would say try to get yourself at least to 3 days with some type of power solution. But we're also seeing crazy, once in 1,000-year floods. We've seen 3 of them in the last month. We've seen 3 once in 1,000-year floods in the last month. We've seen one in New Mexico. And then, of course, we've seen them here in Texas. Here in New Mexico, recently, we see this river sweeping a house away. This just happened a couple of days ago.
Oh my God, dude.
So houses being swept away. We have our floods that happen here in Texas, over 120 deaths, over 130 specifically, still over 100 people missing near the Guadalupe. That river rose 26 feet in less than an hour, specifically 45 minutes. We are seeing all sorts of flooding, which is unusual for the United States. And there's not a lot of things that we can do about it as an individual household, other than trying your best to prepare your household for what may to come. I did a video recently on how I prepare for Texas flooding. I'll link that up for you down below. But you want to make sure that you do have things at the ready. An axe if you need to climb out of your attic, a whistle so you can get the attention of an emergency. Making sure that you have shoes on when the flood starts so that you're not walking on splintered wood. All those type of small things and details are super important, because although we can't personally affect how the climate is going, you can still prepare for the worst case scenario, because you just never know how those things may go. The flooding here in Texas was just crazy bad. And I pray for all those that went through those situations. Not only the things that have recently been happening, but we're also worried about the things that are come this summer. We're at the beginning, the infancy of the hurricane season for 2025. NOAA, this is directly from NOAA's website. NOAA predicts an above normal 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. They make that prediction on 2 reasons: current wind speeds and the temperature of the ocean. It's warmer than normal. They're expecting that these storms are going to be able to gather strength in the Gulf or over in the open Atlantic itself, and they're going to be coming towards places like Texas, Louisiana, Florida, North and South Carolina, and Alabama, and all that stuff. Even as they go up the coast and they turn into tropical storms, still bringing all sorts of rain on those northeastern states. This is where you need to prepare yourself, similar to what I just talked about in regards to flooding. The storms, the winds are something we need to really think about as well. Think about your coverages and your plan. If you need to bug out of your location, where you're going to go, who you're going to let know that you went there, and what are you going to bring with you. things that you need to think about. The next topic is kind of one of those things that I don't like talking about politics directly on this channel, but I do want to talk about our rights when it comes to citizens and how we want to ensure that we're not in areas where we're without the rule of law, or we're not having any of our rights trampled upon. So I'm just going to present to you something I'm concerned about and just something that you need to be aware of as well. So the U.S. federal judge recently ruled that ICE cannot detain people based on their race, language, or work. If you don't know, ICE was doing rolling raids throughout California, and they basically were rolling on horseback, and they were talking to people that were speaking Spanish. If you had a certain skin color, or if you were hanging out at a Home Depot, asking you for your information. And so is that probable cause? Is it not probable cause? That doesn't really affect me right now. OK, I barely know Spanish. I'm not Hispanic, and I don't live in California. But if we're thinking about grand scheme of things, I'm always thinking about ensuring that we have our rights, our Fourth Amendment rights, which is just making sure that we don't have to go with unusual search and seizures, and as well as habeas corpus, which is our right to know why we're being detained and get in front of a judge so that we can try to get our asses up out of jail. If this starts now, where it's the detaining of illegals, non-citizens, undocumented folks, whatever language you want to use, that can quickly slide into a slippery slope when we are looking at folks that are Ethiopian, or if you're here and you're German, or if you're here and you look a certain way. So we want to make sure you know your rights when you have an encounter with any type of police officer. For me personally, I'm super respectful with it, and I always ensure I know my rights. Is this voluntary? Am I being detained, or am I under arrest? If it's voluntary, I'm not talking to you. That's just how I like to do things. If I'm being detained, I'm still not talking to you. I'm going to give you the required information so I don't get arrested. And if I'm arrested, I'm arrested. But we just want to ensure that if you support or if you don't support the current policies, understand what your rights are. And that's what I say to do for preparation for this. I'm not saying I'll run out and buy a bunch of guns. I'm not saying to go get a bunch of non-lethals, get yourself a couple more tire thumpers. Not saying do any of that stuff. I'm saying understand what you have the right to say and do if you are encountered with any of these situations, because I do believe it can be a slippery slope when it comes to federal agents, whether it's ICE, ATF, or whoever that wants to talk to us and know more about, hey, what the hell are you doing and why are you here? It goes beyond all of that. Speaking of reasons to actually think about the Second Amendment and think about arming yourself more, this brings me to all the recent shootings, a lot of them. A lot of shootings from folks that are either knuckleheads, lone wolves. I don't know if they're trying to do false flags, but I'm concerned about the increase in them, especially even the one that just happened in Kentucky.
You're learning more about what led up to this rampage and the identity of the man police say is responsible. Our Sam Carter is at Richmond Road Baptist Church today with more. Sam, what's the latest?
Yeah, Jennifer Shack, good news. Good noon to you. The latest is police have identified the shooter as 47-year-old Guy House. We've also learned the identity of the two victims and, sadly, the fact that they were mother and daughter. Now, according to law.
And that's the thing, mother and daughter in this specific shooting. There's other shootings that have been going on as well in Minnesota. This dirtbag here was targeting lawmakers. He had a hit list of 45 lawmakers. He went to multiple houses. He got 2 answers at doors. But we got people like this that are doing politically motivated stuff that we have to think about as well. It's been 1 year. Yesterday marked 1 year since President Trump had a assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. He was only on stage for like 6 minutes, and then rifle fire started to rain down, and he was within inches of losing his life. Now, I'm very concerned for public safety when it comes to me and my family. And I have come around to some thoughts, a few things when it comes to bag guns and truck guns. I recently did acquire a Daniel Defense PDW 300 Blackout 7-inch barrel. I might go ahead and apply for a can. It's can ready. All that type of stuff sitting over my shoulder over there on that chair. But the thing is, it's like, as I think about this, do I really want to have that extra firepower beyond the weapon that's always on my hip? I'm starting to lean towards yes. The firepower that's on my hip is normally a 38 special, a 380, maybe a 45 or a 40, depending on how I'm feeling. That might give me a 15+1, a 6+1 for a magazine if I'm carrying extra mags. But when it comes to shooting through tempered glass, shooting through doors, my weapons I just rattled off really can't do that with accuracy That's why I'm kind of leaning towards putting a 300 blackout to use. I've already started exploring different bags that it can fit in and different ways to carry it. I'm in Texas. Make sure that if you decide to do the type of stuff I'm doing, it's legal in your state. Here in Texas, you can walk around with a rifle that's completely legal. But for you, you may not be able to do that. So you may want to make sure that you're good to go. I don't intend to walk around with mine. Mine will probably be more of a truck gun, but we'll figure that out. But I am concerned about that because it's not just political figures. We recently saw the ambush of firefighters, and this was a thing that was just completely unexpected, because what does that mean if firefighters who are called out to a fire, they're not like EMTs and paramedics? A paramedic or an EMT, if they go to a response to a shooting, they have to wait until the police calls them in and says that the area is clear, and then they can proceed to administer aid. This is not like GTA where the ambulance shows up by themselves. They just hop out and start administering aid. Maybe at an old folks home, okay, assisted living facility. But firefighters, they show up to places and they snap into action. They don't wait for the police. Does that mean that we now may have police officers having to wait, or firefighters having to wait for the police in that type of scenarios? That has me concerned. Think about upping your game when it comes to fire extinguishers and being able to take care of your house. But anything that seems suspect to you, anything that feels weird to you, you should always be thinking about different ways to approach that and what's going to be your method for controlling those situations as best that you can. But it goes beyond just the shootings. The last big thing that I think I'm very concerned about is the number of firings in the U.S. federal government, for two reasons. Number one, I want our government to remain efficient. And if we begin to cut the fat, and then we get away from cutting the fat and we actually start to cut the meat, then it could impact the efficiency of our government. Federal employees are bracing for more firings. The Supreme Court has lit the Trump administration to fire more folks from the State Department, from the Department of Education. They've already let go a lot of folks from the Department of Justice. Thousands of people are being laid off. So my number one reason around this is the housing market, or the employment market in certain regions are about to be flooded with a lot of highly qualified people. That means it's going to be harder for people to find a job that are already looking. If you're in an area where they let go of 1,000 people from the Department of Education, or from the State Department, or from the VA, or from wherever, and they all got bachelor's degrees and experience, that makes it harder to find a job. But beyond that, I don't know if it necessarily makes the government more efficient. Are we going to answer phones better at the Social Security Administration? Are we going to be more efficient at the IRS? I'm worried about lead times taking longer for everything that we do. So being more self-sufficient and not relying on the government is going to be more important for wherever that may mean. I participate in VA healthcare. My wait times for the VA have gone through the roof. And some things have gotten better about how fast my disability claims are seen, but me going to stuff for my PTSD, anything going on with my body, the wait times are growing more and more. And I'm very concerned about, if the gutting of the federal workforce is needed, that it doesn't go too much where it impacts things that you and I want to do, all the way from visiting national parks to applying and getting some benefits that you need from any administration under the sun. A few things I'm worried about when it comes to SHTF and critical threats. These are just a few that I can think of. What are you worried about and thinking about down below that you're preparing for? I would love to know. With your comments down below. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.